What if their pain was just another trap? Not the kind of pain you can see. It's the kind that appears right when you're finally getting stronger, right when you're healing, when you've stopped playing their games. Suddenly, they're fragile, they're crying, they're lost without you. And you start to question everything. Carl Jung called this moment the inversion of power. But what he discovered next might explain why you still feel guilty for walking away from someone who only ever took from you. So before you fall back into their trap again, you need to understand the one trick narcissists save for last. And it's not what you think. If this already speaks to something inside you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That's what helps this kind of content reach more people, especially those who need it most. You spent years trying to be enough for someone who only gave you crumbs. You kept the peace, even when it cost you pieces of your own soul. And just when you began to rise, when you started saying no, when you stopped apologizing for your truth, they didn't get angry. They got broken. Or at least that's how it looked. Tears, regret. Suddenly, they're the victim, and you're the one who changed. But here's where it gets dangerous. Jung warned that this moment isn't a coincidence. It's a psychological pattern, one that narcissists use to sabotage your individuation, your becoming. Because the truth is, they never wanted you healed. They wanted you obedient. So when healing makes you immune to their control, they adapt. They shift from attacker to wounded. But that vulnerability, it's not always real. And even when it is, Jung said it's often weaponized. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt guilty for saying no, even when your whole body screamed yes? What do you think that says about how deeply this conditioning goes? You've been told they're just insecure, that behind the mask, narcissists are actually fragile, that maybe, deep down, they didn't mean to hurt you. But Jung saw something deeper. He noticed that narcissists don't just fear abandonment, they fear your evolution. They fear the version of you that no longer needs their validation. Because that version, it cannot be controlled. And here's where it starts to twist. The moment you begin to heal, to rebuild your inner structure, to set boundaries not as punishment, but as protection, they sense it. They don't have to hear your words. They feel it in your energy. You are no longer orbiting around their chaos. And that shift, that quiet refusal to collapse, activates what Jung called the shadow war. Not with violence, not even with anger, but with something far more subtle, psychological inversion. You start saying no. You decline the call. You don't explain yourself. You stop trying to win their affection. And then, something changes. They stop criticizing you. They start reminiscing. They remember how good it used to be, how you used to be different, how they miss the old you. But you're not the old you. You've buried her. You've built something stronger in her place. Still, something aches. Because part of you remembers too. Not the abuse, but the illusion. The moments that felt like love. This is where nostalgic manipulation begins. And according to Jung, it's not about missing you. It's about regaining access. They're not mourning your presence. They're mourning their power. He wrote that narcissists often engage in a kind of time seduction, a pullback into the identity you had before you awakened. And it sounds like love. It looks like affection, but it's not. It's regret. They'll say, "You've changed. You used to laugh more. You were softer before you got so spiritual. I miss the person you used to be." And you, if you're not grounded, you'll feel the pull. Because no one tells us how disorienting growth can be, how lonely freedom feels when you first taste it, how being strong sometimes makes you feel cold. But Jung saw this coming. He said that individuation, becoming your full sovereign self, will always trigger resistance from others, and from within. Because when you stop betraying yourself to keep the peace, you disturb every relationship built on your silence. That disturbance, it's a sign that you're doing something sacred. Not wrong, sacred. There's something unsettling that happens when you stop reacting. At first, it feels like silence, like peace, like finally, you're not being pulled in every direction. But then, they spiral. They have a crisis. And somehow, it always happens when you're doing well. You got a promotion? They're having a breakdown. You're finally taking space? They're in the hospital. You start therapy? They lose their job. Coincidence? Jung didn't think so. He warned of something he called manufactured vulnerability, a last-ditch effort of the ego to reclaim dominance. It's not always conscious, but it is strategic. Because the moment you embody strength, those who once fed off your weakness begin to tremble, not from fear, from hunger. And here's the trap. You're an empath. You tear. You don't want to see anyone suffer, especially not someone who once claimed to love you. But this is where boundaries become spiritual, because empathy without discernment is surrender. Jung observed that narcissists learn, over time, exactly what makes you bend: your guilt, your compassion, your sense of respo. Wait for the perfect moment to weaponize it, and just when you say, "I'm finally done," they whisper, "I have no one else. I know you said no, but this is different. You're the only one who understands me." Do you feel the hook? That's not love. That's energetic bait. And it's so hard to spot, because sometimes they are suffering. They're crying real tears. Their pain looks real. But here's the distinction Jung made. Suffering is not always meant to be shared. Sometimes it is a mask for control. Ask yourself, are they reaching out to heal or to reattach? Because real vulnerability invites connection. Manufactured vulnerability demands sacrifice. And the price is always you, your energy, your time, your growth. Every just this once becomes a thread that pulls you back into the net, until one day you wake up, exhausted, disconnected from your body. Unsure. That's how deep the trick goes. And that's why Jung didn't offer easy answers. He offered clarity. Because sometimes the only way to love yourself is to let them face the very emptiness they tried to fill with you. There's a moment, quiet and subtle, when you realize the game is no longer working, not for them, and not for you. You don't answer right away. You read the message and feel nothing. No urgency, no guilt, just breath. But then comes the escalation. They question your heart, your feeling, your humanity. You've become so cold. All this self-help is making you selfish. You used to care. But Jung saw the truth behind these accusations. He called it strength shaming, the act of turning your growth into a flaw. Why? Because if they can make you feel ashamed of your clarity, you'll get it up. If they can make you question your intuition, you'll return to theirs. This is the ego, inflated and threatened, trying to pull you back into the only role that kept the illusion alive, the caretaker. And here's the part that breaks most people. You still care. That's the paradox. You can see the manipulation and still feel compassion. You can remember the cruelty and still miss the moments that felt real. This is the emotional whiplash that keeps survivors stuck. Because healing doesn't erase love. It just teaches you to stop sacrificing yourself for it. Jung taught that individuation, the becoming of the self, requires us to face this inner tension, not resolve it, but hold it. To feel both the ache of compassion and the fire of self-protection. He wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and who you truly are was never meant to be consumed. You were never here to be a mirror for someone else's emptiness. You were never meant to blame. Your softness is not a contract. Your empathy is not a leash. It is your gift. but only when it's yours to give. So the next time they show up, tearful, apologetic, changed, ask yourself, is this love? Or is this control with new clothes? Are they honoring your boundaries or testing them again? Are they holding your heart gently or pressing on the wound just to see if it still bleeds? Because Jung made one thing clear: the ego doesn't surrender easily. It disguises its desperation as innocence. And if you don't stay awake, you'll fall asleep inside their story again. There's a story Jung never told with words, but you can feel it between his lines. It's the story of someone standing at the edge of an old identity, torn between two voices, one that says, stay, be who they remember, and another, quieter one, whispering, go, be who you were meant to become. This is the threshold of transformation, and narcissists, knowingly or not, are guardians of this gate, because right before your freedom, they become most magnetic. They say the right things. They remember your dreams. They speak your language. But listen carefully. Are they seeing you, or simply echoing the version of you that was easier to manipulate? Because true love doesn't require you to regress. It evolves with you. And this is where so many get lost. They confuse familiarity with safety. They confuse emotional intensity with connection. They confuse rescue missions with love. But Jung taught that wholeness requires disobedience. Disobedience to the stories you were fed, to the roles you were assigned, to the guilt you were trained to carry. And sometimes that means walking away from someone you still care about, because caring for them is killing parts of you. You were never meant to live on emotional rations. You were never M. The more you become yourself, the more you will threaten those invested in your smallness. But that is not your fault. It's your freedom. And Jung understood this too. He saw that when we reclaim our voice, our boundaries, our sacred no, we don't just protect ourselves. We break ancestral cycles. We end invisible contracts. We say it ends with me. So here's the truth. You will be called selfish. You will be called cold. You will be accused of forgetting all the good times. But don't forget this. The good times were not free. They came with conditions. And you are learning to live unconditioned. No longer a mirror, no longer a sponge, no longer a savior, but a soul, intact, awake, and sovereign. Let's go deeper now. Imagine this. You're standing in front of them, calm, clear, unwavering. They're falling apart, or pretending to. Maybe it's tears, maybe it's silence, maybe, and something inside you wants to fix it. Hold them, save them. But here's what Jung would ask. Is helping them helping you become who you truly are? That question, it cuts through the noise. Because not all acts of kindness are sacred. Some are self-erasure dressed as compassion. And if you're constantly choosing their comfort over your clarity, you're not healing. You're reenacting. Reenacting the role you were taught to play. The one that says, if I'm good enough, patient enough, soft enough, maybe they'll finally love me right. But love without respect is just dependency. And empathy without limits is just self-sacrifice. Jung believed that real growth is not about avoiding conflict. It's about surviving truth. The truth that some people only loved your silence. The truth that some crises were crafted to pull you back in. The truth that freedom often feels like betrayal to those who bend. But it's not betrayal, it's birth. And like all births, it's messy. It comes with blood and tears and a severing. But what waits on the other side is you. Not the you they remember. Not the you they could control. But the you who is no longer willing to shrink. So if you've reached that point, if their final trick doesn't work anymore, if you can see through the mask, if you no longer abandon yourself to rescue them, then something profound has happened. You've won the war. Not by fighting, but by remembering. remembering who you are, and refusing to forget it even for then. That's power. That's individuation. That's what Jung meant when he said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And no crisis, no matter how convincing, is worth trading that truth away. There comes a moment, quiet, almost unremarkable, when you no longer explain your no. You don't just. You don't ask for permission to protect yourself. You just say, "I'm not available for this." Not with anger, not with guilt, just truth. And in that moment, something ancient breaks. The old pattern, the invisible contract, the belief that your worth is measured by how much you endure. That one sentence, "I'm not available for this," is not rejection. It's revelation. It says, I choose presence over performance. I choose peace over persuasion. I choose me. Jung wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." But he also knew that true awakening comes when we stop mistaking our pain for purpose. You are not here to be drained. You are here to become. And sometimes, becoming begins with one sentence, spoken calmly, clearly, completely. "I'm not available for this." Let's start here. Healing doesn't begin when the narcissist leaves. It begs. Not physically. You might have walked away long ago, but emotionally, energetically, psychologically. It's when you stop performing the role, when you stop rewriting the story to make them the hero, when you finally stop betraying your inner knowing just to keep the illusion alive. Jung said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. So let's make it conscious. Let's name the pattern, because once you name it, it loses power. It usually begins like this. You meet someone. There's intensity, connection, a feeling like they see you. But soon, that gaze becomes surveillance. That attention becomes control. That love becomes conditional. You shrink. You adjust. You apologize for needing. You confuse peace with silence. You confuse love with loyalty to pain. And then one day, you wake up and realize, this isn't love. This is performance. And the first step across it is grief. Yes, grief. Not just for them, but for who you became trying to keep them. You'll grieve the parts of you that were silenced, the joy you put on pause, the boundaries you never set, the dreams you abandoned for harmony that never came. And this grief, it's sacred. Because Jung taught that in order to individuate, to become your full, whole self, you must first die to the roles that no longer fit. And those roles were never truly yours. You inherited them from parents, from society, from trauma. You were trained to be agreeable, to be accommodating, to be good. But good often meant selfless, and selfless became voiceless. So here's your task now. Reclaim your voice, even if it shirks, even if it disappoints them, even if no one claps. Your voice is the doorway back to yourself. Start small. Say no to what drains you. Say yes to what. Because every time you choose alignment over approval, you heal. Not instantly, but deeply. And that's the kind of healing that changes everything. Here's what they never told you. Your boundaries aren't walls. They're bridges back to yourself. And each time you honor one, you rebuild something ancient inside of you that once said, I belong to myself. But it's not easy. Because when you start setting boundaries, what you'll feel first is not peace, it's guilt. That's normal. Guilt is just a symptom of old programming. It's the echo of voices that taught you love equals self-sacrifice. That good people never say no. That being chosen is more important than being whole. But Jung reminded us that the self, the true self, is not found in pleasing others. It's found in integration. Bringing the exiled parts of you back into your center. A part that's angry. The part that says, I don't want tea. The part that knows, deep down, this dynamic is toxic. And when you welcome these parts back, without judgment, you begin to remember, I am not here to be consumed. You are not their mirror, not their mother, not their medicine. You are not here to absorb blame for their wounds they refuse to heal. So what does individuation look like in real life? Sometimes it's saying nothing when they provoke you. Other times, it's walking away without a dramatic goodbye. It's choosing discomfort over dysfunction. It's making a cup of tea instead of making an apology for something that wasn't your fault. It's taking a long, quiet breath before replying. It's deleting the message instead of explaining yourself again. It's whispering to yourself, I know what I saw. I know how it made me feel. And I don't need permission to protect that knowing. This is not selfish. It's sacred, because every time you choose self, not ego, not armor, but self, you honor the divine within you, the part Jung called the archetype of wholeness. And when you stand in that wholeness, manipulation no longer lands. It ricochets, falls flat, loses its shape. Because there's nothing left in you that believes you have to earn love by abandoning yourself. And that is freedom. Let's talk about the silence. Not the one they gave you, the one you chose. That sacred silence. Where no one is culling at your energy, no one is demanding your explanation, no one is rewriting your reality. In that silence, you begin to hear something else, your own voice. At first, it's soft, uncertain, like a child who hasn't spoken in years. But the more you listen, the more it returns. And what it says is simple. I deserve to feel safe. I'm allowed to rest. I don't need to fix them to prove I'm good. Jung believed that transformation doesn't happen by becoming something new. It happens by returning to what was always true, but buried. Your worth, your voice, your power. Here's where the real shift happens. You stop asking questions like, why did they do this to me? How could they change so fast? What if they need me? And you start asking, why did I stay? What in me believed I deserved it? What part of me was still hoping they'd become someone else? These questions, they're not blame. They're invitation. Because the path forward isn't about fixing them. It's about understanding why they felt familiar. Why their chaos fit like a puzzle piece inside your nervous system. Why their approval felt like air. Why their pain made you forget your own. This is where true freedom begins. When you stop trying to change the narcissist and start healing the pair. And healing doesn't mean perfection. It means awareness. It means noticing when you're triggered and breathing through it. It means feeling the urge to explain and choosing silence. It means being tempted by the old dance and sitting it out, again and again, until your body no longer flinches at peace, until stillness no longer feels like punishment, until love no longer means proving. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are remembering. And this remembering will cost you things. People, patterns, personalities that once defined you. Let them go. Because what's coming is you. Whole, unshakable, unapologetic. Not because you fought your way back, but because you finally stopped fighting yourself. So now you're standing in a space you've never known before. No crisis, no chaos, no call to fix or prove or explain. Just stillness. And maybe it feels strange, because for so long, your nervous system was trained to respond to urgency, to alarms, to the pain of others, as if it were your responsibility. But Jung would tell you, this stillness is not emptiness. It's the beginning of sovereignty. And sovereignty is not hard. It's not cold. It's not detached. It's discerning. It says, I can love you, but I will not lose myself to do it. I can witness your pain, but I am not your solution. And feel your sorrow, and still choose my peace. This is what Jung called differentiated compassion. The ability to care without collapsing, to feel without fusing, to stay connected without being consumed. And from this place, a new kind of life begins. One where your yes is sacred, where your no is complete, where your body is not a battleground for someone else's war, where you rise, not with anger, but with the guilt doesn't stick. The shame dissolves. The old you doesn't answer because she's gone. In her place stands someone reborn, not harder, not colder, just rooted and awake. So let them say you've changed. You have. Let them miss the old you. She was tired. Let them create their crisis. You no longer live in rescue mode. You live in truth now. You live in light. You live in a kind of love that starts with your own soul. And that love, it is not negotiable. It is not for sale. It does not collapse under pressure. It expands and blesses everything it touches, but only when it's honored first within you. There's a quiet kind of power that doesn't need to be seen. It doesn't shout. It doesn't prove. It simply is. It's the power of someone who remembers who they are and refuses to forget again. If this journey has stirred something inside you, a truth, a grief, a bois, not to fight, not to fix, but to return to your voice, to your center, to the version of you that never needed to be rescued, only remembered. And if this video spoke to you in any way, I invite you to subscribe, to stay close, to walk this path with others who are also reclaiming their light. There's more coming. More insights, more truth, more spaces where your wholeness is not just welcomed, it's honored. And now, something else is about to appear on your screen. Another step, another layer, maybe the message you didn't know you needed. Click on it. Let it guide you deeper. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.